Hi, I'm Alistair, and this is part of my video diary documenting the development of this escape room game in a box. Now, in some projects you have kind of quite a formal, structured approach to development. So you start off with an initial concept, and then you might have some sketches, and then you build that into a game design document and a game flow. With this particular project, however, I'm taking a much more organic, kind of hands-on approach to the design. So I had some initial concepts I had at the outset of what I wanted to achieve, but generally speaking I've been taking a very iterative approach to development. So looking at the electronic hardware and software and the physical design and layout and then the actual game itself, and kind of making little improvements, little changes, and then seeing what knock-on effects they have to the other parts of the game, and hopefully I'll get to a point where I'm kind of happy with how it's all working together. And I think in this video it's probably time to look at the next round of improvements to the physical design and the aesthetics of actually how it looks and feels. Now, I'll be honest, this is probably the aspect that I am least comfortable with. Normally in an escape room build, this is the part where I would hand over to a fabricator or a props builder that's got much more skill in this area than me. But for this particular project, I am doing it solo on my own. So I'll give it a go and we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to start off here with this panel, and this is when I'm going to place the modules into these holes. So I just cut them out roughly to start with a drill. And on this side here you can see I've marked out the outlines of where the modules are going to sit on top of them. And the components will kind of pop through these holes here into the base. So I've got the scroll saw here, and I'm just going to neaten up those edges and make it basically look a bit smarter. So if I just lift this shoe up so I can get the blade off. I really do enjoy scroll saws. I think they're great things. I didn't learn about, recently, but they're good for this. So I'm just going to put the saw through the middle of the hole so I can actually saw from the inside edge. Just put that back on and just try and neaten this up. Turn that off, and then if I just undo that blade again so I can lift, there we go, bring the shoe up and just bring that out. You're able to see that edge there, that looks a lot smarter. Just dust those bits off there, and then I'll just repeat that with the other module slots here. So now the next thing to do is to update my panels on the front of each of the modules, I guess. So I'm back in Inkscape here, and you can see I've got 3 different layers here. So the first thing I did is I put the outline down first of all. So this is both the outline of the edge of the interior of the box, and then I've put the 6 cutouts which I just did on the saw. And then what that means is that when I put the next 2 layers on, I can see how those are positioned kind of relative to the holes to make sure everything is kind of inside. So this edge here that you can see between the first cut line and the outside, I've kind of put that in as a safe zone to make sure that all of my electronics are kind of well within the boundary, and also to give me some distance on the edge here, like an overlap margin that I can screw down into as well. So there'll be a little bit of a bit like, you know, if you were sending a document to print or something, you expect like a bleed margin around the edge of the printed page. I've got my kind of bleed margin around the edge of each of my modules. And then I've separated the engraving and the cutting into 2 different layers, because when I export them into laser Gerbil to send to the laser printer, I'll do them on different powers. So the engraving layer, that's got the kind of any text, and it's also got kind of any images or anything. So I've put something relatively basic to start with. I mean, I probably end up doing these again at some point anyway, but you know, just to make it slightly closer to looking like a polished kind of product at this point. And then I've separately got a cut layer, which is going to be the footprint outlines of all of the different components. So you can see each one has got the status indicator in the corner, that's where the LED will go in. And then here I've got an LCD and a dial. I've got 4 buttons here. This is for my switches and my wires panel as well. So I'm now going to export this as an SVG and send it to the laser engraver. This is how they've come out. So I've got a whole set of panels here, one for each of the types of puzzles. You can see I just need to tidy up the edges a little bit there, and then what I need to do is to set the components into these again. So this is the old keypad module, which you'll see was like my first draft. It's a little bit held together by sticky tape. Well, it's not being held together by sticky tape, it should be being held together by sticky tape. It's slightly falling apart. So if I just pop the components out of that one, and I get my nice shiny new keypad panel, with a bit of luck, hopefully, these components will simply pop into place. And if they don't, that one needs a little bit of easing up on that side. So I've got my trusty Stanley knife here. I'll just shave off a little bit just in the corner there. That was catching on. And let's try it again. There we go. You want it to be quite a snug fit because that will help it sit nice and flush. There we go, that's pretty good. Right, that's a keypad, and then I hope I have left enough room for the LCD to just, or the LED to tuck neatly on top of it. It's a bit tight. I probably could have given myself another 0.5 mil there, but actually no, that's come out all right. So you see I've got the LED, the 7-segment LED there, just mounted on the top, and then I've got room over this side to actually mount the Arduino itself. Now these ribbon cables are quite taut at the moment, so what I might do is replace those with something a bit more flexible, like this kind of a silicone lead that I lead here, and then the LED, the state LED, goes at the top. So there you go, that is the new set of wiring, and on the front I hope you'll agree that actually looks quite a bit smarter than the last one. So I'm now just going to do the same process for all the other puzzle panels as well. So I'm pretty happy with how that's come out actually. It's almost certainly not going to be the final version of any of the hardware, but it's definitely an improvement compared to how it was before. And like I said, the approach I'm taking is very much this iterative, making gradual improvements to each of the different parts in turn, and hopefully I'll get to a point where I'm kind of happy with all of the elements, and that's the point where I'll say the game is finished. But for now, I think that's pretty good. I'm pleased with that. If you've been following this series closely, you might notice a couple of other changes I've made as well. So first of all, I've got 2 new modules over this side. I've got a data module at the top, and the idea of this one is it's going to be to present players with a kind of a challenge, not quite a trivia question, but some kind of challenge that's got multiple responses. They'll have to select the appropriate response and then submit that a number of times to pass that module. And here I've got a sequence puzzle, so this is a bit like Simon, where you have a pattern to follow or something input, but these are LED buttons, so after each input the colours of the buttons might change, and we'll use that as a way to decide what the next input should be. The master controller in the middle here, there's been a couple of changes this as well. So initially I had a 7-segment display that was displaying the time. I've actually decided I prefer this 8x64 module instead, so we're going to go with that one as the countdown display. And then this is a 40 character sorry, 20 by 4 character LCD display, and that's going to be for displaying text information. So instructions or information, or if players want a hint on any of the puzzles, that will be displayed there. This was a button which I was using to start and stop the game, and I've replaced that with a key switch, partly because I just think that's a more interesting interaction to have to put a key in and turn it. But also potentially it means that a games master can start the game and then remove the key, and then players obviously can't do anything with that switch without the key. Or it could be maybe players find another key, and that's actually how the game ends, is that they have to stop the countdown by inserting the key again and twisting it. So it just has more interesting and more opportunities for interesting interactions than just a push button, I guess. So I changed it for a key. The top half of the case, I haven't quite decided what to do with that yet. I could potentially insert some more panels. So, you know, rather than just having 5 at the bottom here, I could have another 6 panels at the top. Or maybe I will have some kind of meta game kind of centerpiece or game finale to do after you solve all these things. I haven't quite worked out yet, but I'm going to leave that decision for a little bit further down the road, and we'll see how we get on. But yeah, that's how it's going so far.